Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Debbie Eno from Teacher Success Coach with another episode of the Female Educators Roundtable. And guess what? One of my guests is from the Caribbean. Not only from the Caribbean, she's Grenadian. She's my fellow Grenadian. Welcome, 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 Jillian. How are you?
Hi, good day. I'm well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for accepting the offer for coming on to the show. I really
Yeah.
do appreciate it. What's the weather like down there?
It's beautiful here today. It's sunny, it's hot, it's very humid,
Oh my
but
goodness.
it's just what I like.
Listen to her showing up. It's really nice, etc. Well, in London, we don't have sunny London, we have rainy London. It's bucket down right now. And
I
it's
do
chilly.
that, envy you.
It's chilly. Not only raining, it's chilly as well, right? So, the heaters are on. You guys don't even know what it is like to even have a heater on. Heaters are
No,
on.
do not.
Exactly. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you again for accepting the offer to come on. I really appreciate that, because it's wonderful when people actually give up the time to come to share their journey with us in terms of their educational journey, what it's been like before COVID, during COVID, and now after COVID, and what teaching have been like, etc. So introduce yourself. Tell us what part of Grenada you come from.
Right. So as Massimo said, I'm Jillian Francis, and I originate from Grenville and St. Andrew, but I live in St. George now. Um, I've been a teacher for the past 11 years. I've transitioned to the St. George's University, so that's where I'm at now. And education is my passion, and I do consider myself an education professional.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Right. What was it like, before COVID in terms of teaching? And during COVID, what was it like? Because after all, Grenada, because I remember during the pandemic, it's like listening to, at one time, Grenada had no cases, and then Grenada had cases. And, somebody during those times, just after COVID, I started to interview people from Grenada because I interviewed one of the head teacher from one of the schools, First Choice in St. George's. And, one at the time, she was teaching the children online. And one of the interesting thing about it is, it seems to be this is a Caribbean thing, right? That the children were coming on the online platform dressed in their uniform.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, some of the Grenadian schools, the children were coming on, they were going to school online dressed in their uniform. And I thought that was weird because in the UK, the children were coming on, or should I say, not coming on while they're in the bed. So therefore, the cameras were off, their phone were muted, and they were in the bed. You don't even know who was there, because there were non-participation sometimes.
Right.
Because some of the school rules is they didn't have to put the camera on because you don't know what the living condition was like. I understand all of that. But I do feel that we should have actually asked them to put the camera on just to say hello to us so we see who we're dealing with. But it's like now, even now, the students still talking about it. Miss, during the pandemic, I was in my bed. I couldn't even be bothered to get up. I just put the camera, I just put the log on, and then I just leave it on the side. Really?
Yes. I
You
mean,
know.
during the pandemic, I was a student too, and I'm gonna be saying right now that I've been guilty of that too. It was really a challenge. A challenge.
Really? Oh,
Yes. So
wow.
for me, before the pandemic, I feel like the classroom was more interactive, the students was more engaged and everything because it's face to face.
Mm-hmm.
You demand it. Well, for want of a better word, you get the interaction from your students because they're in your presence. You find ways to do so. You use questioning techniques, among other things. But once the pandemic happened, everything changed. You no longer had control over your classroom. You no longer had the engagement and the interaction that you would have liked to have. And even though some, institutions had trainings and so on where they guided teachers on how to, get interaction from students in terms of using the technological activities. Still, students didn't. Like you said, sometimes we had students who didn't even come on. Probably they came on, but not in front of the computer. We had students who was very mischievous, like posting all sorts of things, using the tabs to do different things on the screen, some of which was very disrespectful. I mean, in Grenada, I know of instances where the principal got involved and the students were very disrespectful. And, it really, really didn't foster learning in the way we would have liked. So I feel like post-pandemic, yes, we've gotten the students back into the classroom. However, a lot has changed in terms of the way they socialize, the way they behave, what they prefer. Not that they know that that was an option of being online and not having to be interactive. Sometimes they still bring that over into the classroom now. So it's still, a work in progress. And even though we're post-pandemic, we still have some of the same behaviors that we're trying to work with.
Thank you for that. So how are you guys dealing, or how have you guys dealt with the behavior that began to present itself in the classroom, and what type of behavior you guys were experiencing?
Well, from what I know of, we had students who were being disrespectful, like saying stuff or um putting up stuff on the screen that was not that we don't expect from our students. That is somewhat disrespectful to the teachers as well as the students. Mainly writing on the screens, mainly distorting the voice and saying different things. So these are some of the challenges we've had. All that was dealt with, I believe. Well, students talk, like you said. The students would say, Miss, this is who was doing this. Maybe not at the same time, but later on, we would have had students coming forward to say who did what. Also during the pandemic, like I said before, I was a student myself at the St. George's University, and I didn't have that experience because we're adult learners. But in terms of the effects that it had on the adult learners is that, well, for me, I can speak for myself in this instance, is that it was challenging to be everything at once in the same environment, being a student, being a parent, being, taking care of the home, everything at once, it was challenging. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. One of the things that a lot of teachers found really challenging is some of them, having to teach online, and the children also was students at the same time.
Yes.
I could talk from my experience. Oh my goodness.
I have that experience too because I do have a son and we used to be trying to do this together because he has classes online. I have my classes online. I have to make sure food is prepared. All these little things that go into making sure your home is happy home. It was impacted during that time.
Yeah, it was mega challenging because it's like I have to be teaching the class downstairs, and I'm thinking, I wonder if my son is on the computer upstairs. So I would give the student a little break, and then I would run upstairs to check in. And he, like typical students, like my students downstairs, camera is off, camera is off, muted, and then sometimes I'm catching him on the PlayStation.
Yep.
And when I look at that, I'm thinking, this is exactly what my students are doing downstairs. So therefore, they're online, but they're not online. They're just put on the computer and they're probably on the PlayStation. So I'm going to say to some of them, oh, how many of you guys are on the PlayStation? One say, oh, I'm not, miss. And I think, yes, you are. I said, because I know what I'm talking about, because my son is doing the same thing and telling me he's listening to what the teacher is saying. So those are some of the things, the experience that we had as teachers and parents. It's been tough, really challenging. one of the thing is how, you say you also were teaching in a boys' school. So, and now you're teaching in the university. So what is the transition like for you? When you were teaching in the boys' school and now teaching adults, what is it like?
To be honest, as a teacher in a secondary school, I feel like I had more influence, I had more connection with the students. It's a smaller class, and I feel like the impact was greater because then you got to, create change on an individual level, on a community level, and even a social level. Whereas in the university now, we have a bigger classroom, 100 and something students at a time. And
Mm,
it feels like most sometimes they're just trying to pass time to get to the next level. So um, the impact is not as great as, when it's a smaller classroom or a younger population. I feel like in secondary level, I got to see more change. I got to make a bigger difference, a much, visible impact on the learners.
mm. Okay, thank you for that. How big was the classroom in the school, in the secondary school?
The classroom ranged from the 20s to about 40 at most, at most.
40. Wow. And now you're saying the university is 100 and something students you lecture into. So which means that some of them probably lie now, some of them probably sleeping,
Yes,
some of them probably sleeping, some of them probably is on social media on their laptop.
exactly, exactly. Some of them are not in the classroom technically,
Yeah,
mentally.
exactly. So as you rightly say, you just pass in time, isn't it? You
Yes,
just feel that they're there just to pass time for the next level. Whereas
yes,
it is so very true when you have these young ones in front of you, you're walking up and down the class, so you're actually seeing what they're doing. Whereas when you're lecturing, you are standing in front of the class. That's one of the things. So, in terms of when you say you make an impact, right? Don't you feel that now with the is it just at what age group do you do in the university?
it's a very wide, it's a wider domain because we have maybe students from 16 to about 45.
Okay.
We do have learners who are, changing careers. So yeah, it's a wide, it's a diverse group. We don't have just, young learners. We have a bit of everybody,
You say you have
ranging
16.
age 16 and above.
Wow. So from 16, they could actually enter university in the Caribbean.
Yes, 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 they can.
Oh,
Because at 16, we finish our secondary level if we go the usual route, starting
okay.
secondary school from 11 years old. I finished secondary school at 11 years old. Sorry, at 16. So yes, so once
Okay.
you finish secondary at 16, you can either transition to community college or then go straight into university to do the undergrad or the pre-medical programs.
All
And
right. Okay, I didn't know that. So so which means that in the secondary school it's up to 16.
well, once they would have, gotten to secondary school at age 11. But some students, they don't. So we have, and, like while we have um, free education for all or inclusion for all, students enter at different ages based on the level they're at. So even though they do the common entrance exam, not everybody is successful. So if you're not successful in your first chance, you get to do it again when you're 12. And if you're not, then you get to do it again when you're 13. So it really depends on when you enter secondary school. When you enter, you spend 5 years. So if you enter at 11, you finish at 16.
All right. So are you saying that when a child did not pass common entrance, let's say at age 11, 12, and then they pass at 13, so they start secondary school at 13. So where would
Yes.
they be during the time they haven't passed?
They actually have a class for the students who we mean. And so they would be in the CPA class preparing for that exam as well.
Okay, so technically they'll still be in primary school, right?
Yes, yes.
All right. It's interesting. Although I was brought up in the Caribbean, right? I can't remember the fact that, you know, you didn't go up if you didn't pass common
Yeah.
entrance. I suppose probably at that time, that time.
I think there is something like grade 7 and grade 8.
Uh-huh.
So some of the schools separated them. However, some of the schools they remained together based on, I guess, space and limit and so on.
All right. Oh my goodness. I know that if you did not pass, let's say when you, I think it's secondary school, when you don't pass, you stay down, if you, let's say if you go to standard one and you don't pass, whatever grade in college, you don't pass, you stay down that year,
Right.
right?
But for common entrance students, if the school has a space, they would go to grade 7. However, they would still be doing common entrance again. Or
Right.
if the school, the space is limited and they just have one, some of them just have one class, they just stayed in the same class and the other students feed them and they all do it together.
All right. Okay, okay. You see, what I found strange when I came to this country as well, that it didn't matter if you passed or failed, you just went up. That was very strange to me. Because in the Caribbean, I come from places where, I know people when they didn't pass, they didn't go up with us. They
Yeah.
stayed down, right? But in this country, it's like it was amazing for me that everybody passed, everybody went up, pass or not. But back home, I know people who stayed down because they didn't pass. So it was, that all that was kind of interesting. So to hear that that's the same system still on, it's kind of amazing to see that after all these years, it's still the same system. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, thank you for that. Another thing is, um, when you actually went back into the physical classroom, right? How was it?
When we went back into the physical classroom, actually it was a struggle because some students had a hard time in terms because some students were doing multiple things. They
Mhm.
were working and going to school at the same time. So, well, at the university level, because at that time I was at the university. So at the university level, some students had a challenge because some of them were working and going to school, so it was convenient for them to be online.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
they had to make the huge decision of whether or not, you know, leaving their job and going to school full time would be, or within school during that time and going and just focusing on their job or probably changing the institution. So that was a big deal.
Mm.
Full time students coming back. So some students still have the option. So the School of Arts and Sciences, which is where I'm based, they had the option to stay online or come to
Okay.
camp for some time
Okay.
because, and that was mainly because of the bus issue. When we just came back to the campus, the bus system wasn't back to normal as yet, and some people, because of how far they live, like from Sates or Guam or St. Mark's or wherever that is, they shared the sentiment that getting to and from school is still a challenge because the bus system has not returned to its usual operation. So they had some time, some grace period for that. However, in the spring of 2020, sorry, the fall of 2023, like now, that is when everybody was, it was the option was taken away. So everybody had to be on campus. There were no online classes as of
Wow. Only now
only
that,
now.
wow,
Only
that
the
was
School of Arts and
fantastic.
yeah, School of Arts and Sciences were the only students who were given that preference because of the distance travel to
Mm.
and from. Remember, the St. George's University is mainly a medical university.
Yes.
So a lot of their students are international students and they live on campus or close by. So
Mm.
they didn't have that struggle of, living far and having to commute long distances. So they had to return to campus long before school of.
Mhm. Okay. So it was only the native and or the
Yes,
locals that were having these
yes,
challenges of, the bus, etc. Okay, okay. Thank you for that. As a teacher, what are the things that stresses you out
What stresses me out?
as a teacher?
Yeah, I feel like it's mainly administration.
Oh gosh, put my hand up for that one too.
Yeah, because a lot of the decisions that are made by people who are not in the classroom, you
Yes.
know? So sometimes the decision is not as practical as they would like to believe it is. So
Mhm.
that's something that stresses me out. What else? It's just maybe the fact that it's so sometimes I like to say that when I see potential in people, I go all out for them. But sometimes students, they just are where they are at this point, and just because you see it in them, sometimes it's not that for them, they're not ready to go there yet. So one of the things that I take on a little bit too much is the fact that sometimes I see great potential in people, and while I try to push them, they just remain at a standstill. So sometimes that stresses me out.
Mm, 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 mm. Thank you for that. It's interesting because when you're talking about administration, this is something I ask my colleagues. I said to them, "What stresses you out as a teacher?" And some of the answers were, the unnecessary admin, the decision made by non-teachers, and not having enough time to finish the curriculum because we
Yes.
have to race through this curriculum, and you kind of are doing it half of it because you haven't got the time to finish it. And there's some topics you're thinking, oh my goodness, this would be fantastic because I actually get my teeth into it with the students. But it's like you're just paying lip service because the student, you cannot get into it in any depth. You just have to go on surface level. And that is one of the things that I find really frustrating.
I totally agree with that because one of the things that always crossed my mind after finishing my teacher education degree is the fact, going back to the classroom, is the fact that we're supposed to be creating change through education and having to rush the curriculum and just prepare students for an exam. That was something that's always questionable to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because are we really creating change through education? Are we really doing that when we're just rushing through a curriculum? So you're right. I am in agreement with that too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's interesting. Thank you for that. When you say that, it's like doing the curriculum, teaching the curriculum just to get them through. And that I find really annoying, just to get them through to the other end. And then you ask yourself, how much of the topic, A, does the student know? B, does the student understand?
That is why sometimes after students become adults, well, the younger students, you would hear them say things like, um, oh, I mean, like, I can't even use Pythagoras theorem in real life. Like, I can't use this in real life. How did this make sense then? Why did I have to do this then?
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't teach it um, in a way that probably encouraged learning. We just probably taught it for an exam or for just so that they can get to whatever grade they were in at that.
Yeah, that is very true. I say to my students, they need to be creative thinkers. So when I teaching them, I'm not teaching them for the exams. I'm teaching them the topic to understand it. And I know I've been to schools where that's one of the reasons why some schools don't take me on because I'm not interested in just the result because my students are more than just the results. And I have to empower them to make them realize they're more than just the result. They're human beings first, and you are unique individual. So therefore, the topic is just happen to be a by the way thing instead of making that the major factor you know. And I think it's important that we remind students that they're not just the end product, they're more than just that. And sadly, some teachers only teach to the curriculum. And this, as you said, the students come out and say, well, I didn't even understand that. I just cram it to get the results. Quite sad. quite sad. In terms of your teaching, you said that when you were teaching in the boys' school, which one do you think is easier or more challenging? When you were teaching, how many years ago? 5 years, let's say 5 years or more, or now?
Well, as it relates just to teaching, I feel like the boys' secondary school was probably more challenging simply because we had students who, had more needs in the sense that, they were younger. A lot was happening at home for many students who, you wanted to find solutions to help most students as compared to the university level. You make connections, but it's fewer. You help students, but it's, fewer. Whereas when you're actually in charge of a class, when you're a form mistress, you have to help every child in your care, every child that you're, placed in charge of. And I feel like that is a big responsibility because you as a teacher, your influence is great, you know? So the perspective you share, how you deal with problems, how you deal with solutions, how you, help them maneuver through a day is really great as a teacher. So I feel like the responsibility was greater there simply because their minds are younger and what you transport to them, really affects them.
Mm, mm, mm,
Whereas
mm,
with the older learner, they already probably have their perspective. They know who they are a lot of the times. And sometimes you say something and it doesn't mean that they take it to heart. It's just that, okay, whereas with a student, a younger student, we have to be very careful, the information or how we share the information we share with them and how we deal with them. Because at the same time, they are dealing with a lot at home. And that's something I realized as a secondary school teacher. A lot of the students were dealing with a lot at home. Sometimes the support that they're supposed to receive at home, they don't have it. So it was a lot more challenging there. I,
mm,
I
mhm, mhm. Thank you. What are some of the challenges that some of the children face at home?
So some of them, have to provide for themselves. So after school, some of them have to go to work because they have to get money to go to school the previous day. Some of them are in abusive homes. The list could go on and on.
Mm, 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 mm. It's interesting. Thank you for that. It's interesting. Last night I was looking at, no, the night before last, I was looking at a program called Young Carers. And I must say, for me, it was a fantastic eye opener. Although I was aware of the young carers, etc., but it even brought it home even more to me that how many of the children that would be in my class that are young carers and they're not talking about it, that when they actually come to school late or they come to school without breakfast or their behavior is a little bit challenging, that some of those could be the fact that they are young carers and they have not slept. And something they said, which was really alarming to me, that in every classroom, there would be at least two young carers in the classroom. I never thought it was so high. So, it was a real eye opener for me in terms of I'm aware of young carers, but I didn't realize the percentage could be so high because in the school I was in earlier on this year, in one of my classes, in my sociology class, I had two young carers. One of them that the times he wasn't coming in, and I knew he was, looking after his mom, so he wasn't coming in, and that was a little challenging, etc. But at the same time, you also know that you need to find tools to help them so that they're able to navigate not only the education system but also their life as a young carer. So that was a real eye opener for me, greater eye opener for me in terms of some of the challenges that I might have in my classroom, because in terms of the behavior, you know we know that the behavior demonstrates not always, up surface. So what in terms of behavior in the classroom, how have you guys been dealing with some of the behavior? And in terms of your university, have you seen any behavior challenges that you had to actually stop and question?
Behavior challenges. Actually, no. So
Okay.
I do see behaviors, and it's, to me, comes across like the ones that we expect from students their age. So it's not a case where I have to stop and question,
Mhm.
but there are instances where, you converse with some students and you realize, wow, like they're still, going through a lot. There's some of them are still suffering from mental health. They're still, taking on a lot. And sometimes it's really affecting their school. And you wouldn't just see it just from doing a lecture. They get to realize after having a conversation, after, just meeting with them post an exam or something like that. Yeah.
So how do you support such students?
So we have a really good student support at St. George's University. We have PSC for, mental health and so on. We have the learning strategists for students who have test anxiety, who needs to improve on their learning strategies. We have a number of different things. So we have advisors to meet with the students pre and post exams. So
Okay.
yes, there are a lot of student supports at the university.
Okay. So how is that support given out?
So every pre and post exam, the
Mhm.
advisors meet with the students. So we meet with them in the beginning of the semester. We meet with them pre the first exam and post the second the post exam. So once we meet with them and we converse and we find out how they're progressing and just finding out some of the things that are affecting them, we recommend different supports based on their responses and how they're dealing with everything.
Okay, thank you. Is it automatic for all students or students you have identified possibly have a need? Is it for all students?
So every student is required to meet with their advisor pre and post exam. So the advisors reach out and the students respond, with a time that they're available to meet. And
Mhm.
then that is recommended for all students.
Okay. Is it a one-to-one basis or they do it in groups?
So the initial meeting is it's a group meeting, but every other meeting after that is individual.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of hours. So, which means that it's a lot of hours, that is, you know. So, how does the advisor get the support for themselves?
The same support that's there for the students is there for the lecturers and the advisors, everyone. So the same
Okay.
PS is there for the support staff as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you. That's fantastic though, because a country as small as Grenada, and they actually have so much support in terms of before the exams and after the exams. That's fantastic. That is
But
fantastic.
that is only at the university level. The secondary schools do not have that resource. They do not.
Okay. I was just going to ask you about that.
Mhm.
Okay. Because in the university they pay for the education, isn't it?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Okay, so I suppose that could be part of the package, isn't
Yes.
it?
But the secondary schools, they do have counselors. It's just that they're not regularly used. And I guess it's the issue of confidentiality and all of these things.
So why do you think that the counselors are not regular use when the counselor should be maintaining confidentiality?
They should, but we have trust issues. The students have trust issues.
Right. But is the trust issue the student have, is it a reality or is a perception? What is it?
I think it's a bit of both. I have a colleague who was actually doing a research on that, just ending up with last year, and she found that the students, they have trust issues, but it's mainly because of past experiences with themselves or their friends. So that is where it came from. So that's where it stemmed from. But
Mhm,
so yeah, I can say it is a reality.
mhm, mhm. Mm. Do you think that could have been that the factor that the reason why that is possible is because the smallness of the country and people, everybody know everybody, that they
That
fail
is
to
a
realize that
high possibility.
this is a confidential situation.
It's all right.
Mm, mm. It's interesting, isn't it? Wow. That's somebody, those are some of the challenges that come with small countries. They say it take a village to bring up a child. Therefore, the village need to know what's going on in the child's life too, right?
Definitely. And that has its benefits and it has its disadvantages.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Thank you. How do you, oh, no, 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 no. Sorry. Right. As a teacher, what is the most rewarding thing for you?
For me, the most rewarding thing is, seeing change in the students. Being able to create, able to see a different, like take a child from point A to point B, and not just me recognizing that, but they themselves recognizing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you there. To see that, a student who did not understand what you've been teaching for the past week, and all of a sudden it's like, Miss, I
Yeah,
understand it, I've got it. I had that last week.
making connect.
Yeah, I was doing something on sociology, and it's like, they're not getting it. They're not. I said, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Talk to your next door neighbor. And all of a sudden, the penny dropped, and she said, Miss, I said, yes, I've got it. I've got it. And it was so fascinating to see that. Yes, I share that. Right. Do you think that teaching should be teacher-led, teacher-centered, or student-led, student-centered?
I feel like it should be student centered
Why?
simply because what I've learned throughout my, entire career in education is that when you're more involved in it, you tend to learn more, you tend to recall more, not just recall, retain and transfer that education for, later learning. So I feel like when students are more engaged in their learning, it becomes more experiential, it becomes a part of them, it helps with their growth. So I feel like learning in the classroom and out of the classroom should always be students.
Mhm. Yes, I totally agree with that for the same reason, because I think that education is not only in the classroom, education is everywhere. Yes. And finally, what are some of the tips that you would give to teachers to deal with their mental health and well-being, and to reduce anxiety, overwhelm, and burnout? Because we know, especially after COVID, people have forgotten about us as teachers. Our
Yes, we are
mental
forgetting
health is
about
all
ourselves
over.
too, right? We are
Yes,
forgetting about.
yes, that is so very true. So very, very true. I like that you say that. Yes.
Yeah. So what I would say is, well, what I do, I take breaks. So I take walks. Walks are good. Alone time. So sometimes I come home and I just, relax in my own space and just unwind. And that could entail a lot of different things. Maybe watch TV, maybe read a book. Sometimes I probably might go to the gym for an hour or two, just anything to to be in a calm state of mind. Um, that could mean, just visiting a loved one, spending time with my family and friends, close family and friends. Whatever makes me feel at ease, I try to do that when I'm feeling overwhelmed, when I'm feeling burnt out. So a lot of times we talk about things to help students when they're in those kinds of states. And sometimes we are aware of what to do, we just don't do it. Yeah,
Mm,
so even just a spa day or anything that makes you feel relaxed every now and again, you should engage in that.
mhm.
We need
Thank you.
it just as much.
Sorry, what did you say? Sorry.
I said we need it just as much as the students, as the parents, everybody else.
Mm,
As lecturers, as teachers, we do need to take care of ourselves and our well-being. We need balance to be the
mm,
best for our students.
mhm. Thank you. Why do you think that, especially us as teachers, we don't take care of ourselves. We don't implement self-love and self-care.
Because we're so busy taking care of our students or learners and making sure that we have everything prepared. You know, that time goes by really quickly. So when you're so focused in making sure you have everything you need, or you prepare everything you need for your students, a lot of times the time in the day what we're left with is just probably just sleep, and it's probably not even going to be a full 8 hours sleep. It's probably might be five, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for that. Have you got anything else you want to say to my people before we leave? Have you got anything you want to say?
I want to say that it's been a pleasure being here and sharing my experience with everybody, and I'm open to doing this again.
Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And I'll
Yeah.
take you back on that offer in terms of,
Okay.
as you transgress through your, through the lecturing in university. Yes, most definitely. Thank you very much for coming onto the platform and sharing the journey of, teaching in a secondary boys school and now transitioning to university, teaching in there, what the transition like, what is been like teaching, we don't teach in university or college. We don't have the opportunity to teach. We
Yeah.
lecture because you lecture and when you finish, you go, right? That's the thing about it. It is so, I found it very impersonal in
It
terms of
is.
lecturing. Because I'm one of these people who like to walk around the classroom. And one of the things when you're lecturing, sometimes some universities or colleges don't have the mic on your lapel. So you have to be standing in the front where the projector is and where the everything is, you know.
We do have the mic like that, so we can walk around. It's just that it's
Okay.
a big hall. So
Yeah. And it's not all they're not always able to hear you either. That's
yes,
the thing about
yes.
it. That's one of the things. That's one of the reasons why, for me, I love being back in schools. It's nice and cozy. I could walk around my class of the maximum group I have is 30. I could walk
Okay,
around yeah. I've also got small groups. I teach A levels.
okay.
Whereas before in some, this is the biggest I've had. In some schools, I've had 10 and 12. This school,
Nice.
I have 30. And I'm saying to them, 30. Oh my goodness. I say, I'm used to 12. I'm used to 6. I'm used to 8. I have 30, a full class, as if I'm teaching the primary school or the younger years, right? So when you talk about marking, it's plenty. But it's really nice to be walking around because I'm one of these teachers who cannot stand still. I
Right.
cannot stand in front of a class. So I have to be walking around to make sure my students not sleeping, right? Because
That's
sometimes
nice.
you have a cheek to want to sleep in your classroom, right? So that's one of the things. Anyway, Facebook people, thank you very, very much for coming on, and thanks Facebook for actually listening on to my show, etc. Don't forget, you guys could catch me on YouTube, TikTok, um, Instagram, LinkedIn, and of course Facebook. And my YouTube is Teacher Success Coach, where I have all these videos, etc. They are powerful. They're really powerful. Even I'm saying that myself. And as you guys know, on the weekdays, Wednesday is a transformational show. Friday is the home education, and Saturday is the female educators roundtable, where I speak to people like Jillian on education fronts. And this Friday, I'll be talking to home educators. So some of you who want to home educate your children, remember you have a choice and there's an alternative. In the UK, you do not have to. The national curriculum is not compulsory, even though they're trying to tell you guys it's compulsory. It's not compulsory. And you could take your child out of school as long as you are educating your child. That's what matters. And on Wednesday, we look at the transformational show, which means I'm looking at women who have transitioned or transformed, some of them through being assaulted, some of them through being come aware of the needs that transform into being much more confident individuals. So if any of you want to come onto my show, you are free to come on. Just message me. However, the show on a Saturday and the show on a Wednesday are for women. But the show on a Friday is for anybody who is home educating the children. So, men, you have a choice. You have a show on Friday, right? But sorry, I need to empower my women because we need empowering. Anyway, guys, thank you guys, and I'll see you all next week. Wednesday, where I'll be having another female who will be talking about her transformational journey. And then I'll be having someone on a Friday who will be talking about the homeschooling. And of course, Saturday, like today, female educators. So any of you want to join my platform to share your journey with us, feel free to message me. As I said, I'm on all those platforms. You could just type up Debbie Eno, Debbie with a Y, Enoe, or on Teacher Success Coach. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Take care, stay blessed, look after yourself, and remember, you have to empower yourself. You have to love yourself. No one will do that for you.